Now back to Inside Real Estate. Here's Mike the Realtor.
Hey folks, we are back. Welcome to Inside Real Estate, Sports, Entertainment, Politics. We've got it all. Hey, time to do a little high school sports segment right here, right now. We've got a great guy on the line with us. We've got Highland Park head coach Randy Allen. State champion, by the way, over 350 wins, been in the coaching business for decades, and by the way, nominated by the Cowboys for the NFL High School Coach of the Year as well. Coach, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I'm right here.
Thank you for calling in on a Sunday morning. We certainly appreciate it.
Well, I'm actually at an airport going to a coaching convention in Nashville, so it's good to talk to you.
Right on. Hey, are you going to be going to the Pro Bowl for those festivities as well, for the high school coach festivities?
Yes, they're flying us out on the 29th, and we'll stay till Monday, so it'll be a 3-day trip to Orlando, Florida, and it should be a lot of fun.
Good deal. Well, we love talking with coaches that are, coaches work so hard and it's such a thankless job at the high school level. And, people just don't understand that you guys work just nonstop. And you're all about helping the kids. And, it's just a thankless job. And, we always appreciate, people taking time to talk with us, especially when they're so busy as it is.
Well, we worked 16 weeks and 7 days a week to win the state championship, and we do it every year if we had to. But whether we work 10 weeks or 16, our stipends are still the same. So
right.
But we had a great parade yesterday at Highland Park. We had 1,000 people that lined the streets, and we went to from the high school to Gore Park and had a big celebration, a lot of proclamations by the mayor of both cities. And so it was a good time to celebrate the football season.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a great season. Congratulations on that, by the way. For most of the playoffs, you kind of really handled everybody, pretty easily. Looked like the closest game that it got pretty tight was really with Mansfield. Talk about that.
Well, we did have a 14-7 game with Mansfield Legacy, and George Stewart deflected a pass on 4th and goal on about the last play of the game to win it for our team. And but the next week against Denton Ryan, it was 7 points difference, and they were driving down the field. We had another interception by Zach Foltz to win that game, and in the final game against Temple, it was 7-0 Temple, 7-7 at half, and then we went ahead 14-7, and then we got a safety to beat them 16-7. So the last 3 games were pretty close. Yeah,
exactly, and it was blowing out big for the most part, early part, and then it tightened up later in the playoffs, and you guys really had to push on through. So certainly a great year. And I know you've been asked this before, but of course having Jerry Jones' grandson on the team, Do you treat him just like another ball player, or is there? How do you handle that?
Well, we do, and John Stephen wants to be treated like any other ball player.
Yeah,
and so we try to treat all of our players the same. And I tell everybody, I had 3 quarterbacks that were competing for the position, and I met one time with all the dads, or all 3 dads, and explained to them how we were going to evaluate quarterbacks, and I was going to keep objective stats. And if I couldn't make a decision after spring training, I'd let them compete for a scrimmage, and then I would name a starter right before the first game. And John Stephen won the competition and proved himself by leading us to the state championship.
Yeah, and it looks like he had a pretty darn good season, over 3,000 yards passing and 30 TDs. And what a lot of people may not know about him is he's got a bit of a boot for a leg too, isn't that right?
He's a good quick kicker, and we pinned a lot of people back inside the 10-yard line this year when we'd line up in a running formation and quick kick.
Right. I understand you got a couple books out, and so tell me about. We've got a couple of books that I saw, and coaching by the book and then coaching character. Talk a little bit about those.
Coaching by the book is called The Purpose and Passion of a High School Coach, and I wrote it right after the 2005 state championship season, and it's really about the life of a coach. It's about why we coach, why, you were talking about the hours that we spend, and I got into coaching because I was impacted by my high school coach, Merrill Green, and my college coach, Hayden Fry and Jerry Moore, and I wanted to have the same impact on young people they had on me. And one of my coaches in high school was our Fellowship of Christian Athlete huddle leader, and he'd raise money to send us to summer conference, and that's where I heard Tom Landry and Roger Staubach talk about their faith in Christ. And then Coach Green hired me for my first job at Bryan High School, so he got me started in the coaching profession, and then he was my reference to get my first head coaching job. So I talk about how to get a job. I talk about the season we had in 2005. Of course, we had the great player, Matthew Stafford, but we had a great team to go with him.
Right.
And then just talking about why we coach, you got to take if you take care of the players, they're going to take care of you. And just talking about putting the players first and serving them, and how that will motivate them to give their best effort back as a player.
Absolutely. And it's so tough when you're trying to wrangle, young men. Young men have got a lot of different thoughts running through their heads every single day. You got those hormones and whatnot. And then, of course, nowadays with social media, since '05, let's just take since '05 because that was Matt Stafford's year. From then until now, how have things changed, and how have you had to adjust coaching-wise to the players nowadays with what's going on in social media, et cetera?
Well, one of the obvious things is we take up cell phones about 30 minutes before we go out on the field. They like to listen to music in the bus, and they like to listen to it in the dressing room, but we had players who were leaving the dressing room at halftime and answering phone calls and just being a huge distraction in pregame. So we just said, hey, guys, we're taking up cell phones about 30 minutes before pregame, and you're not going to get them back until after the game. So each position coach is responsible for picking up cell phones. The other thing is we have team meetings or we do chants after a game or we're celebrating. I mean, you have to realize that some player is probably going to video it on his phone, and it could appear on social media the next day or that night.
Right.
And so we have a sign up in our meeting room, no cell phones allowed. And I don't keep up with them, their social media accounts, but we just try to talk to them about being intelligent and smart about what you put on the internet. And it's the other thing for the players is there's not a party they can go to where they won't be videoed, so they better do what's right away from the field house because it'll come back. Somebody will put it on the internet and somebody will find out about it.
Exactly. And hopefully young high school players, athletes, they're learning that stuff early. And I think a lot of you football coaches in particular, letting them know that they need to be careful with that stuff, because if they do have plans to move forward, and to college and at the pro level, learn how to handle social media in high school, athletics, and then you'll be good down the line.
Yes, I agree totally. And that's part of our responsibility as coaches is letting them know the consequences of the social media, the bad things that could happen to them as a result of making a poor decision and then having it on social media, and it's on there forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, did you watch the Detroit Lions game last night?
Man, I was so disappointed for Detroit. Matthew, he does it all he can do at his position to win the game, but you got to have a running game. You got to have a defensive secondary, and it looked like the Lions were pretty short in those areas last night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a big fan of his for a long time, and I've always thought he just didn't get the recognition at Detroit that he should, because but he's always had such a tough. He has never had the supporting cast he really needs to go far, and you're right. He does all that he can, and what frustrates me oftentimes is so many of his receivers, just don't run the routes well and get open, forcing him into situations that aren't great. And then you're right, with not having the necessary running game, it just puts all the pressure on him.
Well, even with all of that, Matthew it was 21-21 at half with the Cowboys 2 weeks ago, and he had executed about as well as you could execute at his position. And, of course, in the second half, the Cowboys got ahead of them. But Matthew set several records. One is I'm not sure, is it 30,000 yards? He's he's the youngest NFL quarterback to reach so many yards in passing, and I think it's 30,000, but I could be wrong. That may be too much. He's also led his team from behind in the fourth quarter 8 times this season, which is an NFL record.
That is, absolutely.
And so even though his team has not advanced past that first round in the playoffs, he is having an excellent year as a quarterback.
Absolutely. And I know that, and off the top of my head, I don't have that other benchmark as well, but I know what you're talking about because he reached it in a shorter time period than other quarterbacks, and that's an NFL record as well. Yeah, and I'm just, like I said, I'm a huge fan of his, the way he plays the ball, and he's a competitor. He's tough. He doesn't let, injuries get in the way. And I, of course, hope he has a better year next year with, a better cast around him. He always has a great year himself, but I just hope he has a great cast next year around him for sure.
Well, I met Coach Caldwell, the head coach of Detroit, and I sure enjoyed him. We were in a WE conference together, and that was put together by Tony Evans, the Urban Alternative, and it was held at AT&T Stadium, and they had some great speakers talking about teaching character to your players and putting your players first. And I really believe in Jim Caldwell, the head coach, and I think he'll finally get it going there at Detroit if they'll just give him some time.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And it is so important, I love what you guys do, and I love the head coaches that preach character and, teaching these young men to take care of themselves and, to do things right on the field, do things right off the field, and I just love that. I love that extra discipline that goes with it because so many of these young men need it, and we just really appreciate what you're doing. And by the way, congratulations on an excellent year. Of course, 5A state champion. And by the way, what an amazing career. Over 350 wins, been at it for decades. Folks, you're going to see him on the sidelines in his classic fedora. It's been head coach Randy Allen over at Highland Park. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, it's been an honor. Thank you for calling me.
Hey, appreciate it. And best of luck for a great season next year as well.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Hey, folks, we're going to take a short break. We'll see you in a few.